To everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Okie dokie. I am walking into Snow White, 2 p.m., now seating. Let's see how empty it is. One, two. Okay. 2.
Rachel Zegler's Hollywood fairy tale didn't just end, it was erased. In a move that stunned even industry insiders, Disney has quietly pulled Snow White from theaters and yanked merchandise from shelves like it never existed. Billions lost, empty theaters, a marketing machine that collapsed under its own weight. And at the center of the disaster stands Rachel Zegler, once hailed as Disney's next icon, now left holding the broken pieces of a career that may never recover. Theaters rebelled, fans mocked. Even Disney's top executives wanted nothing to do with the wreckage. What was supposed to be a groundbreaking modern reboot turned into one of the most humiliating failures in the company's history. And Disney's scrambling cleanup tells you everything you need to know. But how did it get this bad? How did Snow White become the movie Disney wants you to forget? And why is Rachel Zegler now facing one of the most brutal falls from grace we've ever seen? Let's get into it, because the real story is even uglier than you think.
We challenge hate when we face it, but we do it with love while always striving to make the world a better place.
When Snow White collapsed at the box office, Disney didn't just take the loss, they tried to bury the evidence. Across the country, theaters started pulling the movie from their schedules. Some didn't even wait for Disney's permission. They swapped out Snow White for anything they could find: kids' reruns, indie films, old blockbusters. Anything but the empty disaster Disney had forced them to screen. Meanwhile, stores were quietly pulling Snow White merchandise from shelves. Dolls, shirts, mugs, all of it shoved into clearance bins, or boxed up and sent back like it never existed.
Here's a story from Variety. Disney scales back Snow White Hollywood premiere amid Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot controversies. Now, this is the lighter headline.
Disney didn't issue a press release. They didn't make a statement. They just started scrubbing Snow White out of public view, hoping no one would notice. Billions were lost, months of marketing down the drain. And behind the scenes, executives were reportedly furious, not just about the money, but about the humiliation. Snow White wasn't supposed to bomb. It was supposed to be a crown jewel. Instead, it became a stain Disney couldn't wash off fast enough. But the real humiliation wasn't behind closed doors. It was what happened inside theaters across America. And once it hit the internet, there was no hiding it.
Who hates when I win? The winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her.
It started with one video. A fan walked into a Snow White screening on a Saturday afternoon, expecting at least a handful of people. Instead, what they captured on camera was a graveyard. Rows and rows of empty seats. A giant screen glowing in an almost silent theater. You could count the audience on one hand, and still have fingers left over. The clip exploded online within hours. Memes flooded social media, calling it Snow White and the 7 empty seats. Some joked she brought flowers to her own funeral. Others said it looked less like a movie premiere and more like a canceled PTA meeting. And it didn't stop there. More videos started surfacing from different cities, all showing the same thing. Empty theaters, silent screenings, entire multiplexes where not a single person showed up to watch Disney's most expensive princess movie yet.
And then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part.
The internet wasn't just laughing, it was brutal. And for Disney, it was a PR disaster they couldn't spin or scrub away. No amount of marketing dollars could hide the truth. Snow White wasn't just a flop. It was a full-scale rejection, caught on camera for the entire world to see. But while America was busy turning Rachel Zegler into a meme, things overseas were about to get even worse. Because some countries didn't just laugh at Snow White, they banned it completely. In America, Snow White became a meme. Overseas, it turned into something far worse, a total blacklisting. Lebanon didn't just pull Snow White from theaters, they banned the film completely. No screenings, no rentals, no streaming, not even merchandise allowed across the border. Officially, Snow White didn't exist anymore. It was a full government-ordered shutdown, the kind of move usually reserved for banned books, not Disney fairy tales. And Lebanon wasn't the only one.
People will assume it's a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie, Andrew Burnap. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Other countries started backing away too, quietly canceling release dates without any fanfare. Some blamed scheduling conflicts. Others claimed low market demand. But the real message was impossible to miss. Snow White wasn't controversial. It was radioactive, and no distributor wanted to touch it. Meanwhile, the collapse kept getting uglier back home. Disney had pumped millions into Snow White merchandise, dolls, costumes, shirts, mugs, all lined up months ahead of the premiere. They planned for sold-out shelves and a tidal wave of princess fever. Instead, months after release, Snow White products were still sitting untouched.
I'm a narcissist.
Even massive discounts couldn't move them. Big-name retailers started quietly boxing up unsold merch, shipping it back to warehouses, or tossing it onto clearance racks next to forgotten cartoon spin-offs and outdated toys. And if that wasn't humiliating enough, some stores reportedly gave away Snow White dolls for free just to clear the space for new arrivals. The message couldn't have been louder. Audiences didn't just skip Snow White, they rejected it. They didn't want the movie, the message, or even a souvenir reminding them it ever existed. For Disney, it was a catastrophic loss. For Rachel Zegler, it was about to get personal. Because as the global backlash grew louder, Rachel wasn't just losing fans, she was losing control.
I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on.
At first, Rachel Zegler tried to laugh it off. She doubled down in interviews, insisting the movie was groundbreaking, revolutionary, exactly the change Disney needed. She smiled through the backlash, posted polished photos, and kept telling fans to just wait until they saw the final product. But when the theaters stayed empty, when the memes started piling up, when the merchandise gathered dust on clearance shelves, the cracks started to show. Rachel's confident, almost cocky pre-release persona gave way to something raw, something desperate. She took to Instagram with emotional live streams, her voice trembling as she fought back tears. In one clip, she compared herself to a broken statue, saying, "Despite my cracks, despite my flaws, people will still line up to see me." But by then, it was clear. They weren't lining up. They were walking away, and the people who once cheered for her were now leading the charge to tear her down. Suddenly, every interview clip of Rachel talking about fixing Snow White went viral for the wrong reasons. Her past comments mocking the original fairy tale, calling it weird and outdated, resurfaced and fueled even more backlash. To audiences, it didn't sound like a fresh take anymore. It sounded like arrogance. And while Rachel tried to shift the narrative, the damage was done.
Absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
Not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Her own emotional breakdowns became part of the story. Proof, in the eyes of critics, that she wasn't ready for the pressure she had created. But the real betrayal wasn't coming from the public. It was brewing much closer to home, because even Rachel's own co-stars were starting to turn their backs. As Rachel Zegler's public image crumbled, the real knives started coming out, from the very people who once stood beside her. First came Gal Gadot. In a carefully worded interview, Gal didn't defend Rachel. She didn't even pretend everything had been fine behind the scenes. Instead, she dropped a bombshell, blaming a lack of teamwork and a misalignment between the movie and the audience. Translation: this disaster wasn't my fault. Gal spoke carefully, but the meaning was clear. When asked directly about the backlash, she didn't shield Rachel. She said there were many setbacks during production, and she found it all exhausting. And when pushed to talk about her experience with Rachel specifically, Gal refused, saying she would share more when she feels comfortable. One sentence. 10,000 rumors overnight. Fans immediately took it as confirmation. The set wasn't just tense, it was toxic, and Rachel was right in the middle of it. Then came the next blow, this time from co-star Andrew Burnap. Andrew didn't just skip the Snow White premiere. He skipped the press tours, the interviews, the promotions, everything. For a major Disney project, that kind of absence is unheard of. And it didn't go unnoticed. Worse, Rachel herself had hinted months earlier that Andrew's scenes might get cut, laughing it off in an interview like it was no big deal. Imagine working months on a Disney film only to have your own co-star openly joke that your role could be axed. No wonder Andrew stayed home. Behind the smiles and the marketing, the truth was obvious. Snow White wasn't just a box office bomb. It was a battleground. A movie where co-stars threw shade, disappeared from premieres, and distanced themselves from the mess as fast as possible. And Disney? They were about to make their own brutal move. One that made it clear Rachel wasn't just losing fans and friends. She was losing the future.
Original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
While the Snow White disaster played out in public, Disney was making moves behind closed doors, and Rachel Zegler's future was the first casualty. Tangled, the next big live-action adaptation Disney had lined up, was supposed to be their comeback. Another princess. Another billion-dollar franchise. Another shot at fixing their broken momentum. Early reports even had Rachel Zegler at the top of the list to play Rapunzel. It made sense on paper. Young, recognizable, fresh off a major Disney film. But after Snow White imploded, Disney didn't just recast. They scrapped the entire project. No announcement, no teaser trailer, no marketing hype. Just silence, like it was never planned at all. And insiders were blunt about it. After Snow White, Disney wasn't willing to risk another franchise, or another $200 million budget, on a lead actress the internet had already turned against. This wasn't just about a bad movie. This was about survival. Studios don't cancel potential billion-dollar reboots over one bad box office run, unless they believe the face of the project is too toxic to save. For Rachel, it was another brutal message. She wasn't just losing one role. She was losing the trust of the biggest studio in Hollywood, and with it, the future she had been promised. And while Disney was quietly burying their plans, the final humiliation was about to hit, from the last place anyone expected. While Disney scrambled to clean up the Snow White mess, another movie quietly walked onto the scene and drove the final nail into Rachel Zegler's career coffin.
When we look, you can see families were more than willing to go to the box office to support something like the Minecraft movie, while Rachel Zegler's Snow White continues to plunge.
The Minecraft movie. A goofy, blocky, low-drama live-action adaptation that everyone assumed would be a harmless sideshow. Instead, it became a box office wrecking ball. While Snow White crawled toward a disappointing triple-digit total, even with Disney's full marketing machine behind it, Minecraft blew past it in a single weekend. No drama, no political lectures, no internet wars. Just pure, chaotic fun. Exactly what audiences were desperate for. And the numbers were brutal. Minecraft didn't just outperform Snow White, it humiliated it. While Rachel's movie struggled to attract even small crowds, Minecraft packed theaters with fans of all ages, blowing past projections and leaving Disney's so-called revolutionary reboot looking like a bad punchline. Hollywood insiders took notice immediately. Articles started popping up overnight about studios reconsidering Rachel for future projects. Executives reportedly grew skittish about casting her in major roles. Some insiders even hinted that Disney's live-action fairy tale strategy might be on hold indefinitely, all because of the backlash surrounding Snow White and its star. Rachel Zegler wasn't just dealing with a box office bomb. She was now facing the brutal reality of a career frozen in place, abandoned by audiences, sidelined by studios, and overtaken by a movie about pixelated zombies. But the story wasn't quite over yet. Because while Rachel was scrambling to salvage what was left, another storm was already brewing. And this time, it was coming straight from the most savage corners of pop culture. Rachel Zegler's story was supposed to be a modern fairy tale, the young star crowned by Disney, leading a new generation into the future. Instead, it turned into one of Hollywood's most brutal cautionary tales. And now, Disney, the same company that once bet everything on her, is pretending Snow White never even happened. Rachel Zegler went from red carpet darling to industry outcast almost overnight. Not because of one bad movie, but because audiences rejected what she stood for, and because Hollywood realized that no amount of marketing could force a star onto a public that had already made up its mind. Now, as studios rethink their entire strategy and Disney licks its wounds, one question hangs in the air. Can Rachel bounce back from this collapse? Or did Snow White quietly close the book on her career before it even had a chance to begin? Because in Hollywood, it doesn't matter how bright you shine. If the audience turns away, you disappear faster than the final credits. And for Rachel Zegler, the credits may have rolled a lot sooner than anyone expected.